they didn't have handicapped accessible facilities. When we did, they just needed to put it in the contract, that it did exist.
Now, remember, I'm gonna give you a copy of all these slides, so you're gonna have it writing in front of you. Authority and procedure to sign something. Written agreements must be reviewed by the district staff officer for legal in our district. First. Once they approve it, and it always comes back with half the contract crossed out. Okay, that's just the way they work. If you get the other people who agree with that, everything's fine. Agreements must be signed by the senior leaders first. Either the district commodore, the division commander, or the flotilla commander. Those are your senior people. If you have one of those three signatures on your contract, you can sign it as the person who's gonna operate it. If you don't have those signatures on it, you don't sign it. Or it's your contract. Okay? If you wanna see what it's worth, go to the boat show in January. The contract is like 12 pages long. It covers everything from soup to nuts legally, okay? I never sign it. I sent it to legal last time, the last 2 years in a row, legal never sent it back. I finally said, do we need something? He says, no, we're okay, and I'll tell you why. Because the best agreement you can possibly have is a verbal agreement. Okay? The owner is covered, the auxiliary is covered because you're doing your official business. Although you haven't got anything in writing, you're just talking and you're doing your normal work. The owner is protected because the Federal Tort Claims Act, when they're dealing with you as an official government employee, it covers them under those conditions. So they have access to some protection. So you can agree to everything. This place where we're at today, we have a verbal agreement to use as an auxiliary function. Where the Seabrook Flotilla, this is the Seabrook Firehouse, we've asked them if we can use it, they said sure. Sign a contract, not a chance. Well, think about that. If one of you dies in here, who the hell's gonna pay for it? It's our meeting? Or is it the firehouse's meeting? Is it the city of Seabrook? It just goes on and on and on and on. The best thing you do is, it's a gentleman's agreement, everything's fine, nothing's in writing. And here's the reason. Every time you sign something, there's something about indemnifying the people that you're signing it for. They want to be held harmless in case your event creates a problem for them. So they want you to indemnify them. The federal law absolutely forbids the auxiliary from agreeing to provide indemnification, which is a whole harmless clause. The manual specifically says, specifically forbids. That's one of the few things in the manual where it absolutely hammers it and says you can't do it. So just don't do it. Don't sign the damn thing, okay? Memorandum of understanding is something, again, that's written. If I'm harping on written stuff, it's for a reason. If you put it in writing, you gotta have people sign it. And then the legal stuff starts. Okay? Memorandum of understanding. They're subject to DIROC's approval. Only the director of auxiliary in New Orleans can approve it for us. Okay? Now, all this stuff that I got, I'm gonna give you a copy of the slides. I'm gonna give you a copy of the actual paragraphs that this is just a recap of what he said, all right? The whole purpose of it was to make you understand that you have a responsibility as a flotilla elected officer, much higher than you thought about. You can't just wing it out there and do the stuff off the top of your head. You really gotta know what you're supposed to be doing. That's the purpose of this meeting today. To give you some protection, give you some idea what you should be doing. Okay? If anybody has any legal questions on here, I'll be glad to get it pursued up the hill and talk about any of it. Everything on the stuff I'm gonna give you has got a reference to the auxiliary manual. You can go in the manual and read it yourself. You can read his explanation, what he thinks this means, which is what we're talking about today. But basically, I've tried to recap everything really quick. Any
Now,
questions?
question
Yeah,
is about assignments of duty.
go ahead.
I wake up in the morning and decide that I want to go visit 4 or 5 stores and do PVs.
Okay,
send an email to the flotilla commander, or the vice flotilla commander, to both of them, saying,
Yep.
Cindy and I are gonna go do 4 or 5 PVs. And I don't know when they're gonna open it and read it, I don't know when it's gonna happen. Am I assigned to do it? Or we assigned to do it?
I
I mean,
believe-
I've notified them, I just don't know if they've got the notification.
I think when you get into that part of the manual, that answer is in here,
Okay.
because that question comes up quite frequently. The fact that you've notified them, and you put it in writing about what your intentions were, I think that part of that will cover you. But I'm gonna let you read in here exactly what it says. I'm not an attorney,
Oh, I know that.
we can play games all day long with that.
No, and I'm not trying to play games, I just know we do that.
Well, I think if you do it, make sure you send them an email and put it in writing, because I think that will eliminate that hassle. Our problem is, we don't do this on a regular basis. Some of us don't, Alvin does. Okay.
Before the days of emails and they first came out with assignment to duty, we were told we had to keep, I was a flotilla commander at that time,
Yeah.
and I had to keep a logbook on my phone at all times, so that, and it had to be a bound logbook, so that I couldn't rip anything out.
Yeah,
Or I
yeah.
couldn't- And if anyone called me, there was a way we had to put the date, the time, where they were going, who they were, just in case something happened, that it would be logged, just like a log for your vessel.
Yeah.
That's what we used to have to
So
do.
what do you do now? If they email you,
It's,
you print it out or?
what's happened now is, yes, that's what's happened with the emails. Now we have it printed, but remember, once the member is back home again, once he's back home again, it doesn't matter. That's what Alvin was saying this morning, you know, as long as you've got it for the mission, and you've got it in writing, now if something happens to you at that point, somebody, your commander, your vice commander, the vessel examiner, the staff officer, somebody's got that in writing that you told them.
So what you're saying, day by day, if the mission's complete and there's nothing happened, you can erase that email. But if something was to happen, then you'd have to
The
print it
email's
out.
there.
I wouldn't erase it.
I wouldn't erase it.
Yeah. Just keep it, just let it go on to the archives. The other problem is you need to remember that every email is dated in the computer, dated automatically. Okay, so there's never any question about what time you notified them. So if you get run over by a truck at noon, and you get your assignment to duty at 1 o'clock, because that's when you send a letter off, it's not gonna cover you. So don't play games with these things. We wanna get you protected and your members protected. And these folks up here can't do a thing about it, neither can Chuck back there. They're not authorized to issue any orders for you to do it. Only you guys, flotilla commanders. Big responsibility, folks. If you haven't thought about it before, I want you to be aware of it now.
You're scaring Jack, I can see the.
Well,
Question,
Yes.
can the immediate past flotilla commander,
No. It's you, or your vice, or the acting flotilla staff officer for that thing, for that discipline, whatever it is. Okay?
I have a question about, both patrols, one of the items here, it says pre-underway contact with radio guard, that, if we do not give the names of all, crew and passengers, guests, then, they may not be covered.
Yeah.
Is that actually correct now?
It was in this district where he was, where this particular
What
attorney
about our
was.
districts?
That was our district procedure. And if you notice, I didn't do anything on the boats today,
Correct. You
because I
said
don't have that
you said
information,
it's coming.
and I can't tell you that.
That is not the normal practice, but
It should be, and I'm afraid that's one of the reasons I didn't do it today. We don't do that here, we should.
But when I started, and it's just 4 years ago, when I started working on the boats, but we did get the names of people,
Yep.
when we were, especially if we worked at Clear Lake and we weren't going through sectors of the guard.
Right.
But, with sector, they have not, I can't think of them ever asking beyond how many
They don't.
POV. They want a POV, but they never ask names, and they're kind of rushed because they're working multiple radios and they have SARS, other things
Yeah.
going on.
But they've always been that way. It's
Well-
something they just don't do here. You know the reason they didn't do it? Because for the last 15 years, we had our own radio station, and we We did not have communications with Sector, okay? So the person answering the phone was one of us, with Gary, for example,
Right.
sitting in the shack, and he would write down all that information.
He put the whole crew down, and he still
And
does
he was
follow
following the book.
Right, okay, so we'll
Okay.
get some further clarification in
But
January.
the new people are not doing that now that we're dealing with Sector, and that has to be started again. So I worked in the operations center for 5 years. I have to tell you, the worst feeling in the world is to have something happen, have the captain walk in and say, okay, who's on the boat?
Don't have a clue.
Haven't got a clue. I will guarantee you, there will be no more patrols until everybody knew who the hell was going out, what time, and where they were going. It's just common sense. And I wanna make sure they do it here, that's why they haven't done the boat yet.
Would be, yeah, if nothing else, it'd be nice to have an email address that we could
Yes.
put that in.
We used to have to fax it in, we used to have to put it in writing and fax it in.
Writing. Just a thought, I'll look at this, but it sounds like, it might be useful to have essentially standing orders, so that the flotilla commander could go out to the flotilla and say, if you will email me, you know, you're gonna do these, when, where, you're gonna be by yourself, and who's gonna be with you, then you will be deemed, as far as we're concerned, to be, operating under orders. And at least put everybody on notice, then they need to do that.
You just wanna protect everybody, whoever the best way to do it is. Pat knows, from his job, that's what he suggests, and that's fine.
Yeah, I'll think about that, because it's hard to come back. One of the things that always worries me is you come, because we see it, we have several guys in our flotilla that do this, particularly people who travel distances, and we'll get an email about, I'm going to traveling from Boston, and
Mhm.
patrolling on assignment for duty, and they may not get a reply, and that hits Dan's email and my email.
Right.
We don't, as a matter of course, necessarily reply to that.
Well, I look at it this way, people say, you don't answer your email every day. I don't read my paper email every day, my paper mail. I don't go to the post office or the box and pull out my mail and go home and read it every day. Why the hell would I do it electronically? Just because they put an E in front of it doesn't mean I'm gonna answer it any quicker than I answer a piece of paper. So you do the same thing, it's mail to start off with.
What I think about is standing orders of basically pre-approving,
Yes, if that's a
Certain
procedure that you're
authorized
required to do,
rather than not getting
Yes.
into a problem about having come and acknowledge this request for assignment to
if
duty.
it's a standard procedure, you
I
can
can
make
see
it.
that working really well for a VE that goes to just 1 or 2 ramps, but I don't know that you wanna leave it at, because I think to have that protection, it's gonna have to be a repeated documentable activity, as opposed to somebody just.
Oh, no, I'm saying they have to email, they would have to email and tell you where you're going, but it would cut out the reply concern that you can come back and say, that's okay, you've got it.
Yeah, we make it standard operating, if you make it standard operating procedure with your members, you put it in writing, and that's what they have to do, and they do it, they do what you've asked them, you're assigning them automatically. That's the implication, and I think it's a great idea. The idea is protection, that's the whole thing, and protect your members. Okay, there's been some cases where we had, end up with personal liability claims against individuals, and it's absolutely ridiculous to do that. We're volunteering, so protect yourselves.
Frank, although to my knowledge, it's not done in Division 6, I know other divisions have done this, and it's for people that are trailering boats, and when they get ready to leave the house, they pick up the phone and they call Sector and say, I'm leaving the house, we're trailering the boat to the ramp,
Yeah, I would,
and I've got what crew with me,
I
and then
would.
when they get to the ramp and they get it in the water, they call into Sector and they activate, and then when they get off the water, they deactivate, request permission to secure, and then when they get to the house with the boat, you know, it's not done here, but I
It
mean,
should be.
what my question is if you don't do that, are you still covered trailering the boat from, say, like sometimes I go up to Condor down to Freeport, you know, and I've never really thought about it before.
Well, if your orders though for your boat are out of your area, out of your normal area, and your orders say that, the implication is you're gonna have to trailer your boat up there,
Yeah.
and that would cover you.
Okay, we'll see,
It
because,
doesn't hurt to do that. I have to give you one other example. When you guys activate for your patrols, okay, for crying out loud, activate before you drop the thing in the water, will you please? great number of accidents happen when you're backing down a ramp. Okay, the trailer jackknives, the boat falls off, something happens backing down a ramp, and then you pick up the phone on the record standing there, and the smoke is still clearing, and the lights are on, and you call the sector and say, I need to activate my patrol because I just had an accident. And the guy on the other end of the phone says, you know, this is just recorded. Have a nice day. Seriously, you have to think about what you're doing. Always think about protecting yourself. I would do exactly what you said. Before I left the house, I'd call up the sector and say, I'm leaving the house, I'm pulling my boat. Headed for my patrol area. Okay? It's recorded. Everything is called into the Coast Guard Operations Center is recorded. Everything. So if you swear at somebody, everybody knows what you said. So if something happens to your boat, you just recorded it. Okay? Linda?
I never really thought about the legal issues before, but I know when you fly, you go on a website, you know, and you sign up for a mission, and then they email you and say, you're approved. Then you just go to the air station, but I don't know that the flotilla commander ever approves those flights. I mean, it's done through Manganero and through
No,
a website, but.
And that's correct. The flotilla commander has nothing to do with it.
And air flights are different, they're ultimately controlled out of.
Operations are all done by the Coast Guard.
Okay, so we're
flights-
covered as long as we're.
Air flights and surface operations are covered by orders from the Coast Guard, not by your flotilla commander.
Okay, because that
Yes.
was confusing when you said that, you know, only the flotilla commanders could do it, but that's
No,
different.
that's for something other than operations. That's why I didn't give you any operation information today,
Okay,
because we're gonna have that clarified once and for all.
okay.
Okay, anything else? Thank you for your time.
I need a break for
Yeah.
5 or 10 minutes. What about y'all?
You need it, take it.
Be here, be back at 10 after 4.
We just want you to know you're